Welcome back, my friends, to TFT Hyperroll with Artark, where we're going to go over a build that was a great build last patch. It really was truly what I would consider an elegant build, and the reason I phrase it that way is that this build combines so many different aspects of the game to create what ultimately would be OP, but it wasn't a brute force type build, like if anyone remembers the Astral Bruiser Swift Shot build I did last season and got from 0 to hyper in about 25 games. It wasn't a brute force build. It was a build that used a little bit of everything the game had to offer. And I'm talking, of course, about the Seraphine build. And unfortunately, 12.19 took a shotgun and put it right through the heart of this build. They nerfed Seraphine, they nerfed the crazy plant lady, they nerfed Rakan, they nerfed the Protector's Cowl, and so there wasn't much left from this build that worked into what was elegant about it. But the question is it still viable in 12.19? Well, when I get a Seraphine at the beginning of the match, I decide I have to give it a try. These augments are not what I'm looking for, and neither really are these, but now I have no choice. So I take the cybernetic shell, that seems to be my go-to, but with a Seraphine and a crazy plant lady to start off, I'm willing to give it a try and see if I can make this build work in 12.19. Now, given the champs that it gave me, I don't think I'm going to win, so I decide to go with 3 Lagoons so I can at least start the building process of getting gifts. I went ahead and slammed the morello onto Seraphine. Remember, she's been nerfed, so her mana is much higher, so she's not going to be casting as soon, so we're not going to be getting the advantage of her burn on everything as early as we would have before. Couple of different choices here. I could take the BF sword or the Tear, because I'm going to want to make a Spear of Sojin on Seraphine, but I'm also going to want to make a Protector's Cowl on our tank, which right now Malphite is serving that purpose, but it's going to be Zac in the future. Also notice I'm picking up Senna. She is going to be a stand-in for Graves, who comes in later and is going to be an absolute key to the build. Again, not expecting to win right now, especially with the champions I have, but I am trying to get the gifts for Lagoon. Now, I had tried this build a few times on the day that patch 12.19 came out and could not get it to work, but I rarely, well, actually never got a Seraphine as one of my first champions. So this was the first time I got to do it, guaranteeing myself an early champ, but the result right now is pretty much the same. I'm just getting walloped. For our next item, I'm keeping in mind our key Seraphine items, Spear of Sojin and morello. So I go ahead and pick up the Tear that I can put on Seraphine, so maybe her casting a little sooner will help us stop this lose streak. Spoiler alert, the answer is no, and if you look at the board, you'll see why. They've got a Senna with a Rage Blade, the Twitch, they're going with the Guild kind of Swift Shot build. They're going to be able to push in us really easily. We need this to come together more before it can get strong. And at this point, I'm almost ready to give it up. You can see the siphon at the bottom of the screen that I picked up, but then I have a choice between Stand United and First Aid. I decide to go with Stand United because this build, when put together properly, is going to fill that column with a bunch of traits, and Stand United works really well. I'm swapping people out so I can maximize my traits. I want to get the Guardians into this fight, have the 2 Cannoneers, and hopefully that will stop the lose streak. And since I started with Cybernetic Shell, I'm making sure to get pieces and parts on everyone. That Tear on Zac is one part of the Protector's Cowl. The Giant's Belt on Rakan is one part of what might be a Sunfire Cape or a Warmogs down the line. And the bow on Senna is going to be part of Last Whisperer or a Rage Blade. This is allowing me to have a little more time, which is allowing Seraphine to do her thing. And as you can see, I've locked for a 2-star, and finally the lose streak is over. For our next item, that chain vest is going to be key because that's going to create the Protector's Cowl on Zac. Again, this was also nerfed. So we're dealing with Seraphine nerfs and item nerfs, but we're trying to see if it can all work together. I'm picking up Silas because Whispers is a big part of this build. And while Pantheon is the preferred champ because he will form a combination with Yasuo later on, we can use Silas for the next round if we're not able to get a Pantheon before then. For the moment though, we're back to where we were before and losing again. And again, I'm wondering, is this even still viable? Luckily, we run into a team that is not having too much luck. They're kind of stuck between Whispers and Shapeshifter, and they don't have their build together yet. We're able to press in the way this build is supposed to work and ultimately take them down to cut the lose streak again. We're into our final augment, and with nothing to roll, I go ahead and grab Mystic Soul. It will give me the Rakan that I need because I've only been able to get 2, and a 2-star Rakan is going to be key. It's also going to allow me to bring my Mystics up to 3, which will give me more magic resist team-wide. And luckily, we run into someone who I think is just messing around because they put a Thieves' Glove onto the Darkflight Sacrificial Square, which ended up with pretty much the worst item possible, going out to their champions, and they're quickly defeated. And it is Treasure Dragon time, and I'm going to have an impossible time passing up this first offering, as it will allow me to complete Seraphine items. I would have liked to have picked up some Graves items, because he is going to be key for later on, but this will give me the Spear of Sojin and the chance to make the Archangel Staff onto Seraphine. Also notice I've picked up a second 2-star Seraphine, so she has the potential to go to 3 stars, which means I want to make her really strong. Now we are missing some pretty key champions right now. We're going to need Graves, we're going to need Pantheon going forward, and luckily, everyone is fighting over the guild build right now, so no one is completely built, and it allows us to get in and beat this person. We did manage to find a Yasuo and a Pantheon, so we're going to be able to fix that part of the build. I go ahead and grab the Edge of Night as the best possible item. I can use it on either Pantheon or Graves, but right now I need to fix this build so we can get as many things in as possible. I'm loading the backline with static shivs so that we're doing a lot of damage spread throughout the rest of the team. Then I decide to roll and see if I can find Graves. I'm not watching the clock. 3, 2, 1. I have Graves. Okay, Celcena put Graves. Nope. I didn't get to do it. And I truly thought that little disastrous mistake was going to be the end, not necessarily of the match, but pretty much any chance of me winning this. But having the 2 Seraphines in the back had a pretty interesting thing happen. It kept Zyra up much longer than she otherwise would have, which allowed the static shiv to do a lot of damage and enabled us to kill Adesia. And while that may have worked once, I wasn't going to try it again. Even though he's just 1 star, I bring in Graves. It's adding to my number of traits active, which is helping with Stand United. This is going surprisingly well at this moment as we run into yet another one of these guild builds that we just keep seeing all the time. And with this victory, somehow, despite mistakes, we are into the top 4 and able to 2-star the Pantheon. And for my final item, I decide to go with Maximum Shock Torment, which makes me wish I had actually chosen Gadget Expert at the beginning when I had the option to do so, but who knew I was going to get this many static shivs at the time. I put the Edge of Night onto Graves because keeping him alive longer is going to be key, and now I'm just trying to find someone to fill out for the empty space that getting the 3-star Seraphine is going to mean. It doesn't really matter right now. I'd love to have a Soraka, but throwing in a Hecarim will always help. And the first contestant is an Astral team with a Mage Aurelian Soul that can be really, really nasty, but luckily we have 3 Mystics, so we're getting that extra magic resist that is going to keep those orbs of death from being quite as deadly as they otherwise would have been, and it allows us to hold on. I've gone ahead and replaced the Hecarim with a Bard, which now brings me up to 4 Mystics, which is giving me a lot of magic resist, although that's not necessarily going to be that effective against a team of Swift Shots and Cannoneers and Guild and whatever is going on here. But luckily, the Static Shiv Torment Shock treatment is really, really effective and ends up knocking them out. This leaves us against the Mage Aurelian Soul, and luckily they did not 2-star that Aurelian Soul, but I also didn't 2-star my Graves. But that 4 Mystic bonus is really, really helping us out, because we are not taking nearly as much damage as we would. We're able to push in and win and say, yeah, this is still viable. It's not OP, but it's viable. Hope you enjoyed the video and have an absolutely, absolutely awesome day.